Welcome to episode 68 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Just a quick note, I didn't do an episode last week. I was away on vacation. I was hoping to get one out, but just didn't have time. So you didn't miss an episode. I just didn't put one out. In this episode's main segment, I'm interviewing Tim Ogletree. He recently wrote and starred in a zombie comedy called The Walking Deceased. We get into the specifics of how he got into the business and how he got this film made, so stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread the word about the podcast, so they are greatly appreciated. I'd like to thank, over on iTunes, I got 2 nice reviews. I'd like to thank Toya Hawkins and Steadfast Heart. Thank you for those nice reviews. These iTunes reviews really do help. It helps get the podcast listed in more places in iTunes, so it reaches a broader audience. Also, if you subscribe to the podcast, then you'll get the new episodes downloaded to your phone each week. So that's a nice, convenient way to stay current on the podcast. And from what I've heard, the number of subscribers also helps your rankings within iTunes. So again, that just helps get the podcast spread out a little bit broader. So if you don't mind, please do subscribe to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast in iTunes. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 68. Also, if you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide, how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Again, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Also, a quick plug for the new SYS screenwriting analysis service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional script evaluation on your script. All the readers have experience reading for studios, production companies, agencies, or contests. The readers I've partnered with are the gatekeepers. They're exactly the same people who are going to be reading your scripts at the companies you submit to. The readers will evaluate your script on several key factors like concept and premise, structure, character, dialogue, and marketability. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend. And I'm offering a bonus. If you get one recommend from a reader, you get a free email and fax blast to my list of industry contacts. This is the exact same blast service I use myself to promote my scripts, and it's the same service I sell on the website. It's a great way to get your script into the hands of producers who are looking to make movies. If you listen to this podcast regularly, you'll notice that I've actually changed it. It used to be 2 recommends, then it was a consider and a recommend. Now it is just flat. If you get one recommend from one reader, I'm going to do the blast from you. It's very, very difficult. What I'm finding is it's very, very difficult to get a recommend. So once someone does get a recommend, even from just one reader, I feel pretty confident that it's a pretty good script. So I'm happy to do the blast and get it into the hands of producers. I've been running this service for now about 2 months, and we actually had our first recommend this past week. Getting a recommendation from a reader really is a big deal. I mean, these readers are seasoned. They've read a ton of material, so they don't give out recommends very often. But when they do, it really is a big deal. So congratulations to the writer who received this recommend last week. The writer is going to do a quick polish on the script using the reader's notes, and then we're going to blast it out in the next couple of weeks. I'll let everyone know how that goes. Hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll have a option or at least some sort of a good result for that writer. Also on the website, you can read a quick bio on each of the readers, and you can pick the one who you would like to read your screenplay. One question I've been getting a lot is about our Studio Reader 3-pack. Right now it's on sale for just $1.99, so that's less than $67 per script read. I dare anyone to find a better value in the industry. There really is nowhere that I know of where you can get a seasoned reader to read your script for less than $67 and get, 3 to 4 pages of solid, good notes. People have been asking about how they can use this 3-pack. It can be used any way you want. You can send 3 different scripts to 3 different readers. You can send the same script to 3 different readers, or you can send one script to a reader, wait for the notes on it, do a rewrite, send it back to a same reader or another reader, do another rewrite, and then send it again to the same or another reader. Really, it's any combination you'd like is fine with me. So you can buy this 3-pack and you can just use it. There's no expiration date or anything like that. Just if you want to buy the 3-pack, you do save a significant amount of money by buying the 3-pack. You can buy it and you can basically just bank these reads and you can use them over the course of the next weeks or months. And as I said, it's any number of scripts, any combination of 3 scripts and 3 readers. So it's very, very flexible. If you want to, so again, if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. I wanted to take a quick minute and just mention a few things that I'm seeing with these scripts that are coming in for analysis. Keep in mind, I'm not reading the scripts, but I am just taking a quick glance at them to make sure they're formatted properly. And a lot aren't even formatted properly. I had to refund one guy who basically sent me a 120-page novel and wanted a script evaluation on it. It amazes me how many people send in stuff that's half-baked. And this isn't a writing talent issue. It's just an effort issue. Don't waste your money or my readers' time having them tell you about formatting issues. I mean, that's a waste. Figure this stuff out on your own. It's really not that hard. I mean, just buying something like Final Draft, that will get you like 99% there as far as formatting. So figure out the basics on your own and then submit a script to, my analysis service or any analysis service or a producer or an agent or manager for that matter. Get the sort of fundamental basics down. That's not what this service is for, and you really should just learn that stuff on your own. Another thing I'm seeing, which is sort of related to this, is that there are an awful lot of scripts coming in that are way over 120 pages. And this is a big problem. Now, I want to preface what I'm about to say by saying there are no hard and fast rules in screenwriting. So you can do anything you want. And if the script is good enough, it probably won't matter. Whenever people are talking about script length and, what's an appropriate length, is this page count too high? Movies like The Godfather and Titanic and The Shawshank Redemption come up. All of those scripts well over 120 pages. There's no doubt. But I think this is such bad advice because the fact of the matter is 99.99999999999% of the people who are listening to this podcast aren't writing something even remotely as good as The Godfather. But yet, probably 50% of the people listening to this podcast think that they are. So that's a huge disconnect. And, telling people that, if you write something as good as The Godfather, page count doesn't matter. It's true, but the fact of the matter is you're probably not writing something as good as The Godfather. What I'm trying to do with Selling Your Screenplay is provide a legitimate path for people to succeed as screenwriters without having to write something as good as The Godfather. If you haven't already done this, go look me up on IMDb and check out my credits. It will be abundantly obvious that I've never written anything as good as The Godfather, not even close. But yet I'm optioning and selling scripts. So that's the good news. You don't have to write something as good as The Godfather to sell a few scripts. So that's, to me, the real question. How do you sell a script if you're not able to write something as good as The Godfather? If you're writing something as good as The Godfather, God bless you. You don't need to listen to this podcast, and you don't need to listen to any podcast. Just write your script, put it up on the blacklist, put it on the ink tip. Offers will be rolling in. Well, I tell one of the easiest things, and this is sort of the thing. So that's the question. How do you sell a script if you're not able to write something as good as The Godfather? I'll tell you one of the easiest things you can do. You can cut your screenplay down to a lean 100 pages or even 90 pages. Get rid of the bloat and it'll make it a much easier read. Really listen to that. That's one of the easiest ways to make a script better without getting into dialogue, rewriting dialogue or rewriting or restructuring it or developing characters. One of the easiest ways to make your script better is to simply condense it, cut it down, get rid of the bloat. The last few scripts I've written have been between 80 and 90 pages. And you know what? I haven't had one producer tell me they're too short. Literally, my horror thriller, I've mentioned a couple times, I've optioned a couple of times. It's 83 pages. I've optioned it to 2 different producers. None of them have said, oh, gee, this thing is just way too short. if anything, when I talk to producers about the page length, they're thankful it's short because it means it's going to be a little bit cheaper to shoot. There is a cutoff. You can't turn in a 60-page script and call it a feature film. That's not going to work. I don't exactly know where that cutoff is. 72 pages, 75 pages, 80 pages, 83 pages might be the bottom end. But somewhere in that 80 to 90 pages, as I said, I haven't had any problems. I think 83 pages is the shortest script I have. I haven't had anybody say, this thing is just way too short. I want to tell a quick story. A few years ago, back in the late 90s, I was flying back from, I'm originally from Annapolis, Maryland, went back for Thanksgiving or Christmas break. I'm flying back, and they were showing Jackie Brown as the movie. This was back in 97, so there was no choice of movies. It's like they played one movie. Your choices were listening to, country music or watching the one movie that they were going to show. And I had seen Jackie Brown when it was released in the theaters a few months earlier. And it had seemed kind of boring to me. It was a little bit slow, and I wasn't that crazy about it. And so I got on the plane. They announced they were showing Jackie Brown. I was like, I was not that happy about it. But as I said, there were no other choices. So I put on the headphones and I watched the movie, and I watch it and I get done, and I'm like, man, that was actually a pretty good movie. But then I looked at my watch. In the theater, this movie was about 2.5 hours. I look at my watch on the plane. The airplane version of the movie was like 90 minutes, maybe, 100 minutes. They had really cut it down. The thing moved quicker, and I really thought it was a much better movie. I recently watched The Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, that thing is like close to 3 hours, and that was just my thought as I'm watching it. It's like, it's very indulgent. It was a pretty entertaining movie, and you kind of wade through some of the slow marks. I can pretty much tell you, if you could cut The Wolf of Wall, it was a good movie, but it would have been a really good movie if you cut that thing down to 110 minutes. It's Martin Scorsese. He's got a lot of clout. He can basically do what he wants. Good for him. I think that movie could be improved by cutting it down. I'm even going to take that a step further, and I'm going to go down on a limb here. And I know this is going to make a lot of film purists' ears bleed, but I think even great films like The Godfather, Titanic, and The Shawshank Redemption could be made even better if they were cut down a bit. You can't possibly tell me that there's not 1 minute of bloat in the 172 minutes of The Godfather that couldn't be trimmed out and make that film just a little bit better. Nothing is perfect. Everything can be improved. And as I said, one of the easiest ways to make your script better is to simply cut it down. So even if you have something as good as The Godfather, you know what? It can probably be better by cutting it down to a lean 100 pages. Anyway, I think that's enough about screenplay length. A quick few words about what I'm working on. I'm writing a limited location mob action thriller screenplay. I'm just about done a very rough draft, so hopefully in a month or two I'll have it polished up and ready to send out. I met a director last Friday. This was a guy who I sent a cold email to with my sci-fi thriller script a couple of months ago. He read it. He liked it. And it looks like I'm going to give him basically a free option for 9 months. We seem to get along well enough, and he seemed to be in the same mindset as me of really wanting to just get movies made almost at any level. So while we were meeting, I pitched him my mob action thriller, which I'm almost done, and he really seemed to respond to the idea. One of the things that I'm pitching this as, it's literally like maybe 80% in one house, and maybe 70% or so just two actors in that one house. So it's a very, very contained script. It's got for just two actors and one location, it's got a good bit of action, good bit of thriller. So we can even probably market it as sort of a mob action movie. And this is something that a lot of producers are really interested in. Action movies play well worldwide, especially action movies that can be shot on a budget. The movie I did last year, Ninja Apocalypse, that's basically what it was. It was a really low budget action movie. And those movies they can play internationally. You don't need a lot of dialogue. There's not a lot of characterization necessarily. You can have that stuff in there, but action plays everywhere. Everybody understands action. Comedy, not so much. It's more difficult to translate that stuff. So I just want to point out a couple of things. This is just so important. Living in Los Angeles, I get that question a lot. Should I move to Los Angeles? This is a prime example where living in Los Angeles and being able to actually meet with him in person is so important. We could have talked on the phone. If we had talked on the phone, I'm sure I would have optioned this script to him. We would have gotten along. But just sitting in a coffee shop for an hour, meeting someone casually, in a coffee shop, just chatting to them, getting to know them. If you're on a phone call, it's a different experience. You're like talking specifically about a specific thing. Hey, this script, we would have talked specifically about the script and hung up the phone. Just sitting in a coffee shop, there's no real rush. I got to know him a little bit. He has kids. I have kids, just some of the other projects he's working on. It just was a much more different situation. And then, as I said, out of that conversation, I start to sort of talk about sort of my overall, goals. It's like just to get some stuff into production. I'm really like writing some low budget stuff just so I can get some more films made. I really want to see films made. I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you'll know I got a lot of stuff optioned, but getting stuff from option to actually getting produced is a big thing. And I just feel like if I write some really simple stuff, it'll have a better chance of getting produced. And he was into that, he liked that idea. So I think there was just a little bit of bonding that took place. And this is what these email and fax blasts are all about. It's about building these relationships, meeting people, and who knows, maybe I'll never even hear from the guy again. You don't know, but I sense that I will. And I sense that if we can continue to work together, he likes my writing, and that's the real value. I found someone, he likes my writing, he wants to work with me, and, hopefully those kinds of relationships will build. And there's other people out there over the years that I've met exactly the same way. And that's, to me, the real value of these email and fax blasts. There's a very slim chance that he'll actually be able to get my sci-fi thriller going. I mean, you never know, but getting any movie made is a challenge. So that's not a knock on him in any way. I mean, it's just difficult to get a movie made, but, building that relationship and finding someone you work with, that's the real value. So now let's get into the main segment. Here's the interview with Tim Ogletree. Welcome, Tim, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ashley. I'm excited to talk about the project and everything.
So to start out, I wonder if you can give us a quick overview of your career in the entertainment industry, kind of bring us up everything sort of before The Walking Deceased, kind of how you got started, film school or no film school, all that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. I definitely went to film school. I grew up kind of like on stage at church and stuff, and I had originally I was like, I want to be an actor when I grow up, and my parents were like, no, you are going to go to college and get a job, for real. And, they saw that I loved the creative side and the arts, so they were like, all right, you can do the communication school, because I wanted to go to UT Austin. That was like my dream school. And they have one of the top TV and film programs in the country. And so I went there. They supported me all through college, and I graduated in 3.5 years. I did the UTLA program, which is a kind of a study abroad type program for entertainment industry focused students, and it's through the University of Texas, and it's obviously in Los Angeles. You go there and you intern and you take a couple classes, and it's just a really good opportunity to get your feet wet in the industry. And in LA, which is a pretty daunting city if you're coming from, somewhere in the South or the Midwest, or really anywhere. I mean, it's a big city, and there's a lot of people and a lot of competition out there for specifically film and TV and theater and really anything in the entertainment industry. It's like jumping into a raging river.
Yeah.
And know how to swim. So from there, I lived there. I moved out there in 2009, and I was there about a month, and I got a pitch meeting through UTLA. They do a great job of hooking you up with connections and people who have gone through the program before, or they just know personally, and their goal is to get you in the business and get you a job and everything. So through that, I met a producer at the company Generate. His name is Jared Hoffman, and I took him a few ideas that I had for web series, and I told him this idea. I pitched him, and it was my first pitch ever, and he was like, that, one of them specifically, that is an awesome idea. Why do you want to make it a web series? There should be a feature. And I was like, well, sure, yeah, absolutely. And I'd never written a feature before. In film school, I mainly focused on TV writing and just producing. And so I had never written a full feature. Luckily, I had a friend, Andrew Poza, who's actually also in the Washington Chiefs. He had written a few features and actually gotten them made, so he came on board with me, and we wrote what was like a family superhero comedy. And we were working on Generate, and it didn't go as far as we wanted it to, but I got my first feature written, and I learned a ton in the process. And my other writing partner, his name is Dylan Ellis, he went to UT Film School with me, and we actually wrote scripts together during that time as well. So I was writing 2 features. I had never written any before, and this second one is called Salem Fate. That came about from meeting another producer, and we were developing that together, and it actually got some good traction with some agents and creative execs at these production companies. And so about a month or 2 into LA, I was like, this is awesome. Neil Flaherty, who was the producer, came on as our manager, and we were like, this was way easier than I thought it was going to be. And of course, it wasn't. Like that, neither of those got off the ground. I was kind of bummed out, and I tried to make them happen. But they never really, we still have the scripts and we believe in them, but it wasn't the right time for those. So, I bounced between LA and Texas. Kind of for the holidays, I would be in Texas, and then I would go back to LA and write and work crappy jobs, which is pretty much what you have to do sometimes. You can go the agency route and work in the mailroom and work your way up, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to have a flexible schedule and I could write and take meetings if I got them, and really just do what I needed to do to make it on the creative side, because I didn't really have an interest in sitting behind a desk. It just wasn't, it's not me. So I stuck with it, and I've had to work crappy jobs, like I said. I've had to go back and live with my parents, and it's been up and down, but I got a chance to work with Garrett Nixon on a movie called Supernatural Activity. It came out in 2012, and that was actually a spoof as well. It was of the found footage genre, and specifically, obviously, Paranormal Activity. But that was my first real feature, really good involvement in a feature film. I've done extra work, but I don't like extra work at all. It's it makes me feel like a cow. But this was a full independent feature, and I had a good role in it, and it really allowed me to work with Derek, who is an incredible producer. That dude can budget like crazy. He can sweet talk anybody and anything, and he's just a really likable dude who is also just a good dude at heart. So he gets to work with these people who want to work with him and give him the opportunity to make these movies. And so I got to really work with him in that. And then he believed in me enough to give me the opportunity to then write The Walking the Seas, which actually started out as Walking with the Dead.
So just to clarify, so you didn't do any writing on Supernatural Activity. That was an acting role?
Right, that was just acting. Andrew Poza wrote that movie. He kind of allowed me some freedom with my character that he wanted me to play. He was like, hey, you can add your own dialogue into the script or improv on set or whatever you want to do. And I was like, cool. So I wrote a little bit just of my character, but as far as writing goes, that was primarily Andrew. Okay,
and just how did you get that acting role? I'm just curious. You had an agent as an actor, and you auditioned and got the role. How did you get that role?
I didn't have an agent, but I did audition just through knowing Derek and Andrew previously. They didn't hand it to me. I went in the room and I prepared for it, and I auditioned, which I hate auditioning more than anything in the world. It's like karaoke to me. I hate it so much. But yeah, it was cool experience to actually, earn a role and have it be in a feature film.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then take us up to the Walking Deceased. So you've met this producer, you start working with him, developing this idea, and then how did that, actually, let's take a step back. Maybe you can give us sort of your pitch or your log line for the Walking Deceased, just for people who maybe have not seen the movie yet. You can just pitch it to them real quick.
Sure, yeah. The Walking Deceased is a parody of the zombie genre as a whole. It takes the favorite characters from any major zombie pop culture movie, and obviously The Walking Dead TV show, and kind of puts them all in one world and has them survive the zombie apocalypse together in a comedic way. We have a sheriff who wakes up from a coma and somehow survives with no food, no water, didn't piss himself. He's kind of improbable. But I just wanted to. The movie pokes fun at kind of silly zombie conventions that are in all these movies and shows and characters that pop up in all of them. But yeah, this group meets up at a mall and then eventually seeks out what is a rumored safe haven that everyone, one of the characters heard about, and they all decide that they want to head there after a horde of zombies attacks the mall and breaks the windows and security is breached. So they go to this farm. They find it called Safe Haven Ranch appropriately, and they find that it may or may not be as welcoming as advertised.
Mm-hmm. So I watched the movie a couple of nights ago. There's a lot of funny stuff in there, and that's kind of the first question I have. You call it sort of a spoof. It's definitely, as you say, there's a lot of sort of, winks at some of the other horror movies, but it didn't feel totally like a spoof. Like when someone says a spoof, I think of like the Naked Gun movies where they're like, literally doing things that are just done for laughs that don't whereas I didn't feel like that quite had this. So how do you sort of see this fitting in?
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you said that, because we were trying to separate ourselves from other recent spoof movies that have come out in the last few years. That they've definitely lowered the bar in a lot of people's, including my opinion, from what spoof used to be. Like Naked Gun's a classic, Airplane, even like Scary Movie, it really kind of reinvented spoof. But we didn't want it to be that. We wanted to bring kind of a fresh look to it and have it be original and not copy scenes exactly. Obviously we wanted to take some of the most iconic scenes from The Walking Dead because it's the most popular show on television and arguably in television history. It's just got this ginormous audience and everyone loves it, and everyone knows the scene where Rick wakes up and then he goes outside and the first zombie kills a little girl. So we just wanted to put a comedic spin on some of those things. And, the character from Warm Bodies, who's actually my brother, he has the inner monologue that's kind of narrating a story from his point of view as he tries to regain his humanity through what he thinks is love, but it's actually just him thinking a girl is hot. So we took mostly these, archetypes of characters and, story conventions that are found in the zombie genre and gave them their own story. And the story itself is even a parody. It's pretty much every zombie movie has this same sort of survival story. And so in sort of the same way that obviously these guys are way more clever than me, but 22 Jump Street is and 21 Jump Street, they're making fun of these action movies and really pointing out these conventions that happen in all of them. So I wanted to do something really similar to that, which is kind of where it differs. We don't take scene for scene from all these different movies. We take characters and obviously they look like them and their names are somewhat similar, but we didn't want it to be just a complete mockery of a whole bunch of different things, a hodgepodge of different movies. stuff together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as I said, there's a lot of funny stuff in there, but it felt like there also were some real stakes where these characters were legitimately trying to get out of the situation. And a typical spoof, you just mentioned Scary Movie and all Airplane, and those, I mean, those movies are great for what they are, but there's really no stakes in them. The people are just doing things that are completely, ridiculous, and that's the humor in them. And this definitely didn't feel quite like that.
Yeah, thank you. That's really kind of easy to say, and I'm glad that
Yeah.
that stuff came across, because that's what I learned in film school and writing, and like there always needs to be conflict and stakes, and the characters need to be driven and seeking something out. They have to have a goal, and so I wanted as many of these characters as possible. Obviously, it's a huge ensemble cast, so fitting like each one of them can have their own specific storyline that was like the main thing, the main focus. But I wanted as many of them as possible to have a goal and really contribute to the story and push it forward.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, and this is one thing that occurred to me just before I even watched the movie. I see the poster and kind of get a gist of what this is. How did movies like Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland play into this? Because I'm curious if you ever got any like pushback or anybody saying, comparing you to those movies. I mean, those were obviously successful movies. Shaun of the Dead is very, very well loved. Zombieland too. A lot of people really like that. So how did something like that? You ever get any pushback when you're writing this script? People comparing you?
Oh, for sure. Like even when you guys announced it back in the day, that it was even coming out or a thing, people are like, why would they do a zombie parody? Haven't they heard of Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland? I love both of those movies so much, and I like Shaun of the Dead especially. I think that is like an ultimate parody of the zombie genre. Like it is basically what 21 Jump Street is. It takes the genre, but it's not a spoofy. It's not pop culture. It is what it is, and I was never, in my opinion, I was like, I'm not going to top that. I'm not going to try. Because it's like untouchable. People will hate me if I try to like do whatever. So I gave, obviously the two characters, they do make an appearance in the movie, but it's like I just want it to be short-lived, just enough to where people are like, all right, they recognize it. Like I think that it is a brilliant movie, and I would never try to, outdo it, because I don't know that could be done in the scope that we were doing this movie. And Zombieland, there were a lot of Zombieland, in my opinion, is more of just a straight comedy than it is a parody.
Yeah.
And I liked what that movie is really original as far as the characters go. It's a zombie road trip movie, and there were conventions in that, like story devices, like the character names, going by the cities that I thought was kind of like silly, and so I kind of worked that into ours with the four main characters from that, because it's like, I don't know, I just thought it was funny, like, why? Who's going to steal your identity in the zombie apocalypse? Like, I would, if I was in danger, if there was a zombie running up behind me and somebody yelled, like, Green Bay over Tim, like, I would not turn immediately. Like, I would be like, oh, Packers fan back there is like, saying something. Yeah. But I wanted to work those in there. I really, I do love both of those movies, and I would never take anything away from that. I wonder if you can walk us through sort of just the writing process. Talk about just the process as I started to get to earlier. You've met this producer, and just talk us, what was that like back and forth? How many drafts did you do, and how long was that process? The initial draft was actually really fast. Once I got started on it, it just kind of wrote itself, which happens when you get an idea that you're super psyched about. So with this particular one, it actually took a little bit of convincing for Derek to get me to write the script, because I was like, I don't know if I want to do a spoof movie. I don't want to be pigeonholed like that. But he was like, you could be the first to market with this. It's nobody's done a scary movie type spoof or parody of the pop culture phenomenon that is this genre now. There are so many movies and TV shows and everything now that's coming about it. So I was like, all right. And the first draft took me 3 weeks, and I literally just I wrote as much as I could every single day, which is, you should be doing that anyway as a writer. You should be writing every day, no matter what it is. It's journaling, it's the writing short story, novel, screenplay, whatever. Just work on it each and every day. So, I can be bad at that and practicing every day. But once I got to this, I was like, I'm knocking this out. I actually had set a date to start another screenplay with Scott, the guy who like our director. We were going to write a different one, and he was actually flying to Texas from LA to write it. So I was like, I want to finish this before Scott gets here. So the last day, I wrote 35 pages. I just sat there for 14 hours and just completely knocked it out. And I was like, all right, I'm mentally tapped out. I need to get this into other people's hands, outside eyes, to look it over. And that's my biggest thing with writing is you have to have other people have their eyes on it. People you trust who know story, know characters, and can give you really sometimes harsh notes. And if something needs work, tell you that it needs work and not sugarcoat it. So I got to see a few people who I know and trust like that, and kind of set it aside for a bit while I worked on this other thing. And a week or two later, they came back with notes, and then begins the rewrite process. So you go through notes from one person, it turns into another draft, and maybe the other person hasn't read it yet, so you send them that draft, and you're like, hey, don't read the other one, read this one. And it can get pretty crazy going back and forth with multiple people. You have to kind of
and how many drafts do you think you ended up writing of this?
I think once production started, I was on the fourth or fifth draft.
Okay.
The third was the one that really, that was what the money people read, the people who came in to give us financing, they read the third draft, which was by far the best so far. And so that really brought people to the table, and that's what the actors read. That's where we pulled the sides for their auditions and everything like that. And then once we were in pre-production, things change depending on the locations that you get, who the actors are that you're working with. Maybe their strengths lie in, they bring something else to the table you haven't written into the character yet, so you kind of have to tweak the dialogue here and there, or give them another motivation somewhere. And it really, the writing process continues even in production. I didn't really have to write any new scenes during the shoot. 2 scenes that were in the script actually got just cut out. We didn't even shoot them because they weren't necessarily pushing the story forward, and it saved us a day of shooting, which saved us money. I kind of now write with a producer's mindset as well, logistically trying to make it shootable for whatever budget we have, because obviously we're working independent with this. But yeah, I had a few drafts, and there were 3 people in the world that I truly would just give any script to and be tear this to pieces, tell me what sucks so bad and I need to fix it, and what you thought was funny, what you thought wasn't funny, what wasn't working. Just having people be honest with me was the biggest thing, because if somebody isn't honest with you and you just depend on their patting you on the back, you're gonna end up with a script that, who knows, it might be awful. It might be awful and terrible. You don't know.
So do you have any insight into the financing of this movie? How did the producer go about actually raising the money? Did he already have some contacts? What was sort of the gist of that angle?
Yeah, Derek, he's very well connected. He's worked with a lot of people in the past, and I actually co-produced this with him. We were with each other from the beginning. We formed that LLC together, and I was just really excited because I had learned producing in school, but I had never really done it, especially to this scale. So we formed that LLC, and then we went out and just pounded the pavement looking for people, anyone and everyone that had money that could possibly be given away. Like, when somebody invests in a film, they have to just be willing to lose that money. Like, they should not expect anything back, because it's one of the riskiest investments in the world. Like, film is a very, very risky investment. So, I really depended on people that I had known in the past, who, like, I grew up with, my parents contributed, and how it happened was Derek had a connection to these guys in LA who said, "We'll come in for half if you guys find half." And our budget was $130,000. So they came in for 65 after we found our 65. And it was really, like, our investors, I only knew, like, Derek came in with one that he had known for a long time, and then we both met a guy through just a random, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. We tried to do a Kickstarter, and it was an ultimate fail. Like, we put it up on Kickstarter with this goal in mind of $50,000, and we were like, people love The Walking Dead, people love zombies, they'll see this on Kickstarter and they'll, like, give us $10 or $100 or whatever. And it did not go as planned. We had, by the end of it, we had like $2,000, or like just under. I don't even think it was $2,000. And we're like, well, that's disheartening. But there was one guy who gave us $1,000, just like donated it on Kickstarter. So we contacted him, and we were like, hey, would you be willing to come on board as an investor and potentially, you know, make money off of this instead of just donating, because he loves zombies. So he eventually did come on board and invested. So yeah, finding the money was just all about personal connections. And Derek had a bunch, and then I had some. So working together, we funded it.
Okay. Now, just to be clear, who was the producer that you met on Paranormal Activity? What was his name?
That was Derek. Derek Nixon.
Okay. So, okay, perfect.
Here on IMDb, Derek Nixon. He actually is the 22nd best Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen love interest. He was a child star back in the day, and he was Ashley's one in Rome, which he'll tell you all about if you ask him.
Perfect. Okay, so then just quickly, maybe you can tell us when the movie's coming out, how people will be able to see it, if they want to check it out. Video on demand, is it going to get any kind of theatrical release?
Yeah, we got a limited theatrical from Park Entertainment to bring it out. It's released this coming Friday, March 20th, and it will be in select theaters around the nation. It'll be in LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, Phoenix, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Philly, and Chicago, I think. So,
that's a pretty solid,
good. Yeah, well, Arc Entertainment is, like, killing it for us. They are awesome. And so they gave us 10 cities, and then same day video on demand release, so you'll be able to get it on the movie channels that you have on, like, if you have DirecTV, our ad will be playing when you go to the movies on demand. It's one of those trailers that's going to loop over and over and over, and if you leave it on your TV, you'll probably end up, hating it, but whatever.
Perfect.
It's in people's minds. And then it'll be on digital then, so iTunes, Amazon, every digital platform, and then DVD April 21st, and, hopefully Redbox and pay cable and Netflix soon after that.
Perfect. I always like to wrap up the interviews where people just tell kind of how people can follow you. If you're on Twitter, maybe you can mention your Twitter handle, or Facebook. If you're on Facebook, mention your Facebook URL, or if you do a blog, anything really you feel comfortable sharing, just give it to us now, and then I will link to it in the show notes. But then people can just kind of follow along with what you're doing in the future.
Sure, yeah. We have, I'll give you my personal Twitter is at TimOgle12. TimOgle 12. And then the movie's Twitter is at Deceased Movie. Our entire title wouldn't fit. So it's at Deceased Movie, and then the Facebook is facebook.com/TheWalkingDeceased. And then we have an Instagram that's deceased movie too.
Perfect. I will link to all that in the show notes. Tim, you've been very generous with your time. This has been a great interview. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to get to talk to you and have anyone who's looking to work with screenplay and trying to sell their writing, give what I can.
Yeah. No, I think you gave quite a bit today, so I really do appreciate it. Good luck with the film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later. In the next episode of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast, I'm going to be interviewing John Jarrell again. That will be part 2 in the 3-part series. The last one was the last episode, so have a listen to that, hopefully before the next episode. Anyways, keep an eye out for that next week. To wrap things up, I want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Tim. I think this is another great example of someone who really just went out and made things happen for himself. We sort of ran out of time during the interview, but I actually think the last part was the most interesting when we started to talk about how he raised the money for the film and got it made. I've said it before on the podcast, and I'll say it again. I really believe the key to success in this business is being proactive and going out there and getting things done for yourself like Tim and his partner did. Nobody, not an agent, not a manager, not even your own mother, is going to care about your own career like you do. So you've really got to be the champion for your career, and you've got to be the one that goes out there and makes it happen. It's really up to you if you want to succeed or not. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.